this week's question is about blood pressure, and specifically African Americans. There's obviously, we have a much higher rate of high blood pressure. Is it a cultural thing, or is there something else going on that we're just missing? Because I don't eat salt too much. I don't eat fried foods, 90% organic, exercise a little bit. Why do we have higher rates of high blood pressure?
Well, hypertension in the African American community is of endemic potential, and I talked about this a couple of years ago on an Oprah show, and it's created this huge firestorm of articles about what were the real causes. And I remember getting into this big debate. So I've done a lot of homework on this. Let me lay it out for you. Without question, there's a genetic element. When the African American community was brought across, those who came across in the slave ships, the people who were able to survive those inhuman conditions had a unique ability to hold on to salt. And so, those ships would lose half the passengers on them. So those folks who had genes that didn't hold on to salt ended up dying. The survivors came to a new environment and actually benefited them while they were young, that they could maintain salt, because with salt they could maintain water in their bodies, so they could survive those inhumane conditions. But now, fast forward 200 years to a society where you don't have those headaches anymore. Now all you've got is a genetic limitation that leads to high blood pressure. That's one issue. And that's why some African Americans, especially men, are very sensitive to salt. A lot aren't. But the ones that are have to be really cautious about salt. Second big issue, obesity. In the African American community, you got a lot of it, and you've got food sources that generally are not only full of salt, but all kinds of other junk. And the brain is looking for nutrients, not calories. So you get extra weight on board and you get hypertension because the omentum, that big belly fat, squeezes on the kidneys, which regulates your blood pressure. So that's the second big thing. The third issue, and this is maybe the most important, in many of our communities, you don't feel empowered. You don't feel like you got a future. If you're unemployed, if you've been incarcerated, if you don't feel like you count, like you're invisible to society, that's stress. It's a chronic stress. It's very different from being late for work. And that leads to high blood pressure. You put those three things together, a societal disadvantage where you don't feel like you can control your life, the extra weight that's often on board with the bad nutrition, and then genetic predisposition, you got a trifecta leading to high blood pressure. Now, every one of those things I mentioned is addressable. Every one of those things can be managed by you better than by me. I can give you drugs for it, but you can manage it better than I can. And that's the plea I have today, is to get you to realize you control your destiny and act on blood pressure. It's the #1 ager of all.